Now, before moving on to these two articles, 27 and 28, which are also dealing with the right to freedom of religion, let us understand a couple of things about the term secular state, which India is under the Indian Constitution. Because once you understand that idea, and I'm trying to be very brief here, the reason being that this is a very vast topic and there are many aspects to it. If you just go with the philosophy, which we are not doing here, we are taking it from the political perspective, wherein we are just trying to see about the secular state in the case of India. Okay, that is the key idea here. And then when we understand that term, फिर हम ये 27 और 28 समझेंगे तो it would be very easier for us to grasp the concept. Now, as I just said that under the Indian Constitution, India is what kind of a state? A secular state, right? This is what we have just read. When we say secular state, what is the idea coming from it? Firstly, that the state has to observe the attitude of neutrality and impartiality. Towards what? Towards all religions. So understand it here, that the state has to cater to all the religions. So the state will be neutral and impartial towards all the religions. And here what is happening, that the state will focus on, a secular state, and in this case Indian state, will focus on the relationship between man and man. Man and man here is not about the gender man and not considering women here. It's about human relationship, okay? Person to person. And not man and God relationship. The reason being that this is something which comes from individual conscience. That, you know, if you even want to have a relationship with Almighty or not. Because there are people who are atheists, they do not believe. So for them also we have to be considerate. Therefore, this is a personal matter, individual conscience, and we have already seen that Article 25 gives that freedom to the individual of conscience. In the previous video only we have seen. In case somebody has not watched it, please go and watch it. But just for the reference, freedom of conscience coming from Article 25 of the Constitution. So that is given to us already. And therefore the state is expected that there will be no interference with the individual rights. ठीक है, religion का, faith का, worship का, there has to be no interference by the state by any means. There were certain exceptions given under this, that, you know, regulating and restricting these activities which may be associated with the practice. And then Hindu religious ka, that is different. Whatever exception is given in the Constitution, that is different. But apart from that, no interference has to be there by any means. And when we say neutrality and impartiality towards all the religions, definitely it also means that the state will treat all religions and religious groups equally. So equal treatment and with equal respect. Personal matters will not be considered, right? But there could be certain conditions जहाँ पे ये secular word could be very confusing and it could mean in diversity, that it could have diverse meanings, because otherwise also, you know, in the present context it is a very controversial word, and therefore there are chances that because of the confusion arising from the different meanings of the secular word, there could be certain misuse of the word. And therefore what the Supreme Court did was to do not have this issue and to clear out this issue and to not have any confusion. The Supreme Court, in a 9-judge decision, gave certain pronouncements. Pronouncement means judgments, and that too authoritative, of course, that it has to be followed, clearing the idea of secularism in India. So what are those certain announcements by the court related to secularism or secular state in India? is what we will now try to understand here. The first thing that they say, so if we go for those pronouncements, the first thing that they say is that India may, because we're just talking about India here, state need not be hostile, which means to a particular religion or different religions. State need not have that hostility or you would say hatred attitude. Rather, what is expected from the state is that it will be neutral, okay, between different religions. Another thing about pronouncement is that, so whatever you have studied has actually come from these pronouncements. So individual will have the freedom to practice, profess, propagate your own religion. So if a person is a devout religious person, a particular religion, let's say religion X being followed here, or let's say religion X, Y, A, whatever religion is followed here, if a person is very much into that particular religion, that does not mean that the person cannot be secular. So that does not mean that the person ceases to be secular. The person can be secular in the idea that being given equal respect to the different religion, but in personal life following one religion. So need not have hatred towards another religion. Then preamble में जो word use किया गया है secular, it will not override the provisions of Article 25 to 30, जिसमें से Article 25 to 28 is about freedom of religion, 29 and 30 is about the cultural and educational rights, which is basically about the minority educational institutions. So religion plays there a role. And also Article 351, which is about Hindi language. So basically they had a context which we don't need to go. It's just what we have to see, क्योंकि preamble anyways जो है is non justiciable. Of course fundamental rights से तो ऊपर उसको नहीं रख सकते हैं. उसके अलावा you also have to see that the political parties, for the political purposes, should not violate this state neutrality towards religion. And if they are asking people to vote in the name of religion or religious grounds, it will be considered as an offense to the secular democracy. And therefore it was also noticed that politics and religion cannot be mixed. Although it is practically happening in the country, but it was supposed not to happen. And then the most important one, that secularism is a basic feature of constitution. So in different judgments it was emphasized. Keshwananda Bharati case, Indira Nehru Gandhi case, and S.R. Bommai case, some major landmark judgments wherein it was talked about that for the state all the religions are equal and the state has to give equal treatment to all the religions and maintain neutrality. Okay, by understanding this, now when we talk about different articles, so basically what is happening, that this attitude of neutrality and impartiality that we have talked about here, this idea, it is actually manifested in the constitution in the forms of Article 25 to 28. Different articles, different provisions assuring something or the other. So this secular idea we try to see in three different formats, three different aspects. Three aspects. One aspect was about the individual rights which were assured in Article 25, that is already done. Another aspect was about the collective right to the religious groups, etc. That we have seen in Article 26, done already. The third aspect talks about the next two rights here, which emphasizes on the idea that there is no state religion in India. So the state will not have any official religion and the state will not establish any own religion, or the state will also not confer any special patronage to any specific religion. So therefore there is no state religion in India, and this is kind of manifested through the next two articles that we will cover. Let's see what does Article 27 say. It says that freedom about as to payment of taxes for promotion of any particular religion. Now notice the keyword here. दो keyword है यहाँ पे. One is taxes. The term here is taxes. It is not talking about any other mode of payment. It is only talking about taxes. Secondly, it is talking about the promotion of any particular religion, which means that the state cannot ask, or let's say no person, in other words, if we see this, no person shall be compelled, किसी को आप मजबूर नहीं कर सकते, force नहीं कर सकते to pay any tax or tax proceeds, which means जो tax collect होगा उसका जो appropriation होगा, appropriation means kind of you can say distribution. So the tax is not used in the payment of expenses for the promotion or maintenance of any particular religion or religious denomination. So here what they are telling, that no person is supposed to be compelled. Again definitely it is for all the persons. जहाँ हम बात करते हैं टैक्स पेमेंट की और टैक्स यूजेज की, which is used for the payment of expense for maintaining any particular religious institution. Okay, which means any particular religion के लिए आप नहीं allow कर सकते हैं. So the state is not restricted here in favoring all the religions. So the taxes can be used by the state to promote or maintain all the religions, but not any particular religion. That is one thing that you have to remember. The second thing that you have to remember, that the keyword here is taxes, which means levying the taxes or imposing the taxes is prohibited, but fee imposition is allowed. Because let's say if the government needs money, let's say they are offering any special service or any special safety measure to the pilgrims, let's say, जैसे अगर आप अभी केदारनाथ यात्रा पर जाते हो या जम्मू कश्मीर जाते हो, हज के लिए जाते हो, ठीक है, डिफरेंट pilgrimage things are there. तो उसमें if the state has to give certain special service or safety measures, for that they would need to charge you, no? So the fee imposition can happen, but not the taxes. Okay, these are the two things that you will remember. One is about the tax, another is about any particular religion के लिए नहीं कर सकते, but in general for all the religions, yes, it can be done. Next that you have to remember is Article 28. अब ये क्या बोलता है? ये बोलता है freedom as to attendance at religious instruction or worship in certain educational institutions. Attendance means that if you are attending the religious instruction or worship or not. So certain educational institutions, now there are different types of institutions which are mentioned here. So certain educational institutions might provide certain specific instruction. Here would mean, let's say, the religious learnings. So they might provide certain learnings specific to a particular religion, and you are not supposed to attend that. You have the freedom. But what kind of a freedom? Complete or partial, or what kind of a freedom? That we will see with respect to different institutions. Firstly, it is telling that no religious instruction shall be provided, which means complete prohibition of any kind of religious learning. So in what kind of institution? In any educational institution which is wholly maintained out of state funds. So any institution जहाँ पे पूरा पैसा state यानी सरकारी फंड से आता है, वहाँ पे it is completely prohibited. वहाँ पे there will be no religious instruction provided. That is very clear. But second clause क्या कहता है? That nothing in this clause shall apply, which means it is not related to the first clause. So यहाँ पे if there is an educational institution which is administered by the state, यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? It is maintained from the state fund. So no religious instruction, because the state cannot have a religion, very clear. But if the state is administering a institution, वो सिर्फ उसको administer कर रहे हैं, but जो establishment था, the establishment of this institution had happened under any endowment or trust. So any specific trust, जो trust होते हैं ना, जो बनाते हैं, कोई endowment है जिसके वजह से वो बना है, and the trust requires that we need religious instruction in our institution, that we want religious instruction. So in this case it will be allowed. Only if it is administered by state but established by any trust, etc., then it is allowed. But if it is completely maintained from the state fund, it is absolutely prohibited. And another thing it says is, no person attending any institution recognized by the state or receiving aid out of funds shall be required to take part in instruction which may be imparted in the institution. Let us break this. So what it is telling, that if you are attending any educational institution, which means if you are enrolled in any educational institution which is recognized by the state, okay, the state has recognized that institution, or which is getting any help, aid from the state, okay, and that educational institution is also giving religious learnings, but you are not compelled to participate in that. Okay, so if in the premises or if they are conducting any kind of religious worship, etc., you are not supposed to be attending it compulsorily. And even if you attend that, it has to be done with your consent. So you will not be forced to do that. If you are attending, it will be on your consent. And if a person is a minor, let's say a student is a minor, and if they're forced to do that, the guardian has to give the consent. So if you are an adult, you will have your self-consent. Only then you can attend any religious institution's instruction. And if the person is a minor, the guardian's consent is needed. Now in these two, you can see that it is partially allowed. ठीक है, यहाँ पे it is allowed completely, यहाँ पे it is allowed partially in the sense of consent, but here it is completely prohibited. So these distinctions are given, and the book has very clearly mentioned this. If I give you in the notes, see, this is Article 27, the same thing that we have done, that no person will be compelled for the tax, and state should not spend the public money for promotion, etc., of a particular religion. But when we talk about attending religious instruction, so यहाँ पे बहुत clearly 4 educational institution का distinction है. One is the kind of one which is wholly maintained by the state. So here you have the complete prohibition of the instructions. Then which is administered by state, lekin established under any endowment or trust, then in this it is permitted. And if it is recognized by state, and if it is receiving fund from the state, मतलब help from the state, यहाँ पे completely maintained by state fund है, यहाँ पे सिर्फ help है. So it is voluntarily permitted, which means if you have a consent, only then you can attend. You need not do it compulsorily. Okay, so here this is what we have covered, and with this we also end our religion related rights. Now the next would be the fundamental right of cultural and education. So cultural and educational rights, which have 2 articles. So we are almost towards the end of the fundamental right. One lecture will be on this, another lecture will be on, now this is already covered, if you remember, property हम पहले कर चुके हैं. Another, these are the exceptions to fundamental right, this also has been done. So another lecture would be on this article 32. So we are almost towards the end of the fundamental rights. Now see you guys in the next video. Take care till then. Bye bye.